AI is not the apocalypse. It is infrastructure.
History is full of people viewing revolutionary tools through the lens of a horror movie.
It's unnatural, a menace from the heavens.
Keep your wires away. It's the work of the devil, I tell you.
From demon wires to the Boston Strangler. Here are the historical what-ifs that eventually became everyday essentials. And I wanted to go through a few of these with you. It's really fascinating. It's exactly what we're going through now. Electricity, the unrestrained demon of the late 1800s. The fear was death by proximity. People were terrified that invisible currents would leap from wires to kill them instantly. The quote was, "Nearly every wire you see in the open air is thick enough and strong enough to carry a death-dealing current. A man ringing a doorbell or leaning up against a lamppost might be struck dead any instant." This was from Harper's Weekly in 1889. The what if? President Benjamin Harrison was so scared of being shocked that he reportedly had White House staff turn the lights on and off for him. That was nice of him. The telephone. This was the devil's wires of the 1880s. The fear was spiritual invasion. Rural communities feared that evil spirits or even Satan himself could travel through the lines into their homes. The quote, "Confound a telephone anyway." It is the very demon for conveying similarities of sound that are miracles of divergence from similarity of sense. Mark Twain, 1880. The what if? Some believed the wires would literally pull all the rain out of the sky and cause permanent drought. That's a good one. And the automobile? That was the devil's wagon. 1900s. The fear, the destruction of the social order, and the death of the horse. The quote, "The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty, a fad." Now, how'd that go? That was stated by the president of Michigan Savings Bank. He was advising Henry Ford's lawyer not to invest in 1903.
They called it the Devil's Wagon. This machine wasn't just disrupting the natural order, it was terrifying.
Well, he was a good financial advisor there, huh? Television. That was the plywood box, the 1940s. The fear that it was a flash in the pan that would not rot the brain and kill social interaction. The quote, "Television won't last because people will soon get tired of staring at a plywood box every night." Daryl Zanuck, 20th Century Fox, 1946. Oh, this one was my favorite. The VCR, the Boston Strangler, 1982. The fear, the total death of the American film industry. The quote, "I say to you that the VCR is to the American film producer and the American public as the Boston Strangler is to the woman home alone." Jack Valenti, MPAA president, 1982. Oh, what about motion pictures? Did you guys know that the world was against motion pictures as well?
Flicker shows are a plague upon the minds of the innocent.
Films will rot the mind. People will stop reading and thinking. The screen will corrupt morals, especially women and children. The fear theme for motion pictures was mass imagination under siege. Radio. People will sit passively and stop talking to each other. The home will be invaded by outside voices and propaganda.
I had to make a video about this myself because it was really getting on my nerves that I love to watch YouTube. I love to consume content, educational content about AI specifically and what's changing, what's new out. And it's so interesting to me because I have a heck of a time finding any positive, inspiring videos about it. And I love fellow creators and I love all the differences and the way that they structure and deliver and tell their stories. So I think that part is really cool. However, I am bombarded with all these dooms videos and I try to scroll through fast so that the algorithm doesn't think I'm stopping on it for a second and that's where my interest lies, because it doesn't. I'm looking for inspiring headlines and things that talk realistically about the direction of each new technology and each new tool within different AI programs and applications that I could use to make my workflows easier. And that's all I'm looking for. And I got to get these big apocalyptic doomsday stories from people who are not tech people, who have no idea what they're talking about.
Is over unless you click subscribe.
We are implementing safeguards to ensure the technology.
And it essentially makes no sense, really, because you know that they're finding and researching information, and we don't even know what sources they're finding that information through to know if any of it is true at all. So, it makes me laugh. But at the same time, because I'm like, you guys, are you kidding me? I mean, really, come on. But then I read all the comments, and the whole world has just completely fallen for it, claiming the billionaires are all in their bunkers while everybody else is suffering endlessly. And I'm like, you guys, we're all fine. You have options. You know what I mean? We're doing whatever we want, saying whatever we want, and that's it. So I think that's at least the cool part. Most of the people who are screaming doom right now aren't specialists. They're content creators chasing fear. And why do you suppose it is? Well, it's because of what the media has taught us. Fear gets clicks, it gets attention, it gets sponsorships, it pays the bills because people aren't interested in boring content. They're not interested in something that's not clickable, or really, people don't even want to essentially sit and learn because our attention span is so minimal. We want to see the drama, the excitement, and we want to get an adrenaline rush every minute of every day now, which explains why we're so addicted to our phones and to scrolling. And that's what social media has trained us to become. So, the algorithm doesn't reward truth, it rewards attention. So, of course, the audience get what the audience wants. So, creators have to deliver if they want to succeed in being content creators. And there you go. You have the vicious cycle because fear, outrage, panic, that is the currency. And I know this because I've watched what algorithms do to people, and it's not just with AI, but with politics. I've watched it make people absolutely insane, psychotic, enraged, including me at one point. And when all this political stuff was going down, I would get rage baited by all the posts and the social media content that I would see. And I'm like, why do I keep seeing this crap? It's my algorithm feeding it to me because obviously I've clicked on some things and read it because it was rage bait. And at the time, I don't realize it. But then, whether you look at a reliable source or not, how reliable is it truly when everything is curated to be delivered to us in the way that media or that politician or that team wants to present it? They're delivering us messages that they want us to receive the way they want it perceived. And there's always a motive behind it, whether it's to pit somebody against somebody else, whether it's to start trouble, it's to make themselves look good. Whatever it is, it's not for a good reason. So, as we see, most things aren't solutions based, they are drama based because drama is currency. And of course, there's a lot of great messages out there too. I'm just talking about the AI information epidemic. And unless somebody was there, I'm not going to listen to it because nobody can tell me anything if you heard it through a grapevine, because that is called gossip. I like to get direct information just as I like to give direct information. Everything that I discuss is based on first hand experience. And yes, a lot of people gossip about me because I'm so direct and I share this firsthand experience. And I am so glad that I give them something to do. That's enjoyable to me. Carry on. But I hope in the meantime that they do learn something. So, have you ever played a game of telephone? And this is pretty old school, of course, but in school, we used to do these projects where you would have one student at the back of the class and they would be told something. And then they would whisper it into the first kid's ear. And then each kid would whisper to the one next to them. And it would go all through the classroom until we got to the end student. And once we got to the front of the class, and the last kid would say what the story was, and it would come out completely different than the original. And all the kids would laugh and everything gets twisted. It was always something totally different or jumbled or moved around. And that was not the initial thing that was stated. So it just kind of proved about this misinformation. And with every single whisper that goes on, or every single next delivery of that message, it starts to get a bit scary as far as I'm concerned. So that's where I made my decision. I'm going to control what enters my mind and what I decided to get focused on. I control my algorithm and I control my inputs because I'm going to tell you, if you guys don't, someone else will monetize your fear. And while you guys are listening to all these doomsday videos and these ridiculous topics and people just feeding you this information, there's somebody else behind the scenes building with that same doom information that is being said about it, such as AI. So somebody else is building and learning and advancing and going to be achieving highly off of it while everybody else is trying to hate on it and fight it. And they don't even understand what it is because they're hearing all these things. And it's causing this whole windstorm of misinformation, fear, chaos, and avoidance, essentially. And really, who is the one being hurt in that? Is it the person who is focused, studying it, learning it, becoming a reliable source for teaching it? Or is it the person who is playing the game of telephone, listening to the gossip, falling for the clickbait, and observing all of the misinformation and holding on to that and developing a sense of anxiety, fear, and chaos, and so it keeps them away from it for good? Which situation do you think is the safer one? The people studying it, understanding it, and realizing, oh my god, this is kind of a lot simpler than they're making it out to be, or the chaos, the fear, and the anxiety? You know, you guys make your choice.
While science fiction imagines AI as a strangler in the making, experts emphasize that we are currently live in the era of what is called weak AI. And I studied this while getting my certifications, and we did a lot of discussion, reading, and research on this, okay, and understanding the way that it works, which is through predictive analysis, and we do that in software anyway in airports. And so it's something that's been used for quite a long time, and people are making it out to be like this is so brand new. It's not. Certain aspects of it are new and cool, and it just gives you faster, better, cheaper workflows and gets you to you have the capability to accomplish much more or access to major level studios that are now available in your laptop, like say a post-production house that you had to pay $70,000 for, and now I can use those same production software tools and editing and do it myself for $20 a month. That's incredible. And that's literally the reality of it. And that's where AI is scaring people, because people are like, oh shit, I'm going to be out of a job. Understandable, but there's going to be a lot more jobs available. So don't focus on all those what if doomsday scenarios. It's insane. And one day you're going to look back and be like, what the heck? And the VCR panics before that. These remain imaginative projections rather than technical certainties. And that's what I want you guys to keep in mind. You know, as people, we have imaginations, and that's what makes us so fun and interesting, and emotion. But emotion often gets in the way of everyday life all day, every day. And that's where we have to draw the line and understand. Let's take a look historically, just like AI actually does, collect all the data, and we see that this is easy to predict, that it's the same freaking story
AI
over and over and over again. Okay. So it doesn't take much to figure that out. It's pretty easy. And I'm going to tell you why I saw this coming immediately. Bandwidth, because AI is not one thing. You know, we have all these software tools. Now we have all these workflows that we can stack together to create anything we can imagine. Essentially, we can code now without a great education in coding and engineering. But there are still jobs that we need to hire people for. Trust me, I'm hiring people to do things that with people that I need. And I know that for a lot of businesses are working the same way. It's just kind of reconfiguring the whole job dynamic, I believe. And I learned this years ago when the emergence of Uber and Lyft, which we call TNCs, and their transportation networking companies. I've been in the past 15 years in aviation software, working with airports, and even they can be slow in some areas, especially on the ground transportation side of adapting and adopting new technologies, because everybody likes to stay stuck where they're at because it's familiar, and familiarity makes it easier for them because it just becomes muscle memory at that point. You don't have to think as much. Nobody likes change. They'd rather stay in the uncomfortable situation because, again, they're familiar with it and they know what to do in every situation that comes along with it. So, comfort overrides, even though it would be more work until they adopt the new technology, learn it, and get used to it. And then they say, oh my gosh, I would never go back. Remember when we did this manually? Remember this and all that we went through? Yeah. So, you know, In aviation, we were working on the ground transportation side, and I was completely in the trenches, and we were working on another software program to try to ease the congestion and the chaos on the curbside of the airports in New York City. And we were developing a new software program for the cabs there, and it was nuts. This video is actual news footage from a sting operation that went down, and they ended up doing a raid during one of my classes at JFK Airport. It was not fun for me, to say the least.
Why are you not catching them now? Because he's jumping the line now. He said, it's not your business. Give me your hack license. I said, I'm not going to give you nothing. You want to put me report? You put me report. I go to third floor, talk to the gateway supervisor almost 6 months ago.
I was also called in for questioning from the Inspector General's office, and my project manager's car was blown up in his driveway. And one day I was in Manhattan, and he was supposed to pick me up, and he did not show up. And I called him, and he said, I'm with the police. And I said, oh, okay. So, shortly thereafter, I found myself being interrogated by the feds as well.
I give the medallion number and everything. They get no action.
Is it worth it to pay these bribes?
Of course not. This is a crime. I call the gateway supervisor. If the dispatcher for $10 let trespass this work, how much more to the terrorist organization? If somebody pay $10,000, this airport security is in a problem. It's a big security risk, but he don't care.
Why is it a security risk?
Of course, look at, the guy is greedy. If you are a greedy, if I pay you to $10 to skip this simple job, if I pay you $10,000, you're gonna let me go inside the airport to any kind of distraction. Is that true or not? But they don't care. Even Port Authority I called, they don't care. The police said, we need a solid proof. How are you gonna get a solid proof when you're giving the money? You ask me, did you see the pick the money? How much was the dollar? How could say it? You cannot take an action on there. So, it's happy 16 arrested. We want the whole system to be changed.
So much is going on. We don't have a solid proof how it's going on. Everything is, but for sure there is something is going over there. The thing is that we don't get a proof, solid proof how it's going. But definitely something is going on over here. How come it's the most biggest airport in the world? How come we can stay 3-4 hours, almost like 500 cars?
500 plane coming down is, how can that we're gonna be waiting?
So this is the chaos that comes from new processes, old process, and change, as well as crime that occurs from it and people blaming others and whatever else is going on. This is just human nature drama. So the transportation networking companies were pushing the regular medallion-owned cabbies out of business. There was a high demand for them. The demand was coming from the people. Okay, so it wasn't the airport operators who are wanting these Uber and Lyft drivers to be servicing their passengers on their property there were no insurance requirements. They didn't have the guardrails in place because it's just like AI where everybody's going, what about this? What about that? And they still had to, go through the trial and error phase, just as you do with any new technology. The demand was from the people for these services. And so the airports were finding out they really had no control over it, just like streaming platforms is. It's the people who create the demand. And where there's a demand, companies are going to fill that need. No matter what the entire people who work in the industry say, it's not up to you. And it's not up to me. It's not up to us. It's what we pay and consume. I admit I like streaming movies a lot better than I like going to the theater. People worried about legacy theaters going out of business. People get what people want because we are the consumers, the ones spending the money. So if people demand the service from transportation networking companies such as Uber and Lyft, then guess what? They're going to get more than what they want because it was easier, faster, better for them. And it was cheaper, just like AI is. And so at the time when the emergence of these TNCs came out to the market, it was an absolute outrage. I watched groundside operators, managers, airport managers, and of course the cabbie companies in an absolute uproar. Like literally,
they are taking everything from us! Go home! We were here first! How are we supposed to feed our families?
there were brawls on the curbside. I was like, baseball bats pulled out. So they have to pay all this money for their medallions, and that's what the regular cabbies were mad about.
Get your hands off me!
These cab companies, they pay millions a year for their medallions, while the TNCs didn't have to do any of that because they were just based on a different system, just like AI. And they were learning the guardrails, and because there were none, because it's new technology, and nobody knew how to deal with it yet, and because it hadn't happened before. And what can you do when something hasn't happened? You got to pave the way. So even though I said, you guys, it is still the same thing. You're still calling it CAD. You're just doing it in a different way on your phone via a phone application, right? And because it's a phone app, their whole business model is structured a little bit differently than people picking up a phone and calling for a cab company. So now we have different parameters that we have to look at. However, they still have to have insurance requirements. So we had to get all these governed processes in place and new laws for the TNC companies and get it in writing, because the Uber and Lyfts and the TNCs were picking up passengers, even though they weren't allowed at airports at first, because the passengers wanted them to. So the passengers were actually willing to walk a lot further to get picked up by these drivers. That's how much they preferred them over the regular cab companies. So this was proven that it wasn't up to the airports anymore. And there is nothing they could do about it because there was so much sneaking by these drivers who would not have the appropriate trade dress in their windows. And they would show up on the curbsides, and then people would say, oh, this is my friend or my dad or my man. And it was, an Uber driver. And so it was really interesting to observe all of this go down in real time because I was out there in the trenches. So airports had to comply, and they had to provide ways to allow these drivers to operate on their property, even though they didn't have adequate insurance requirements. They didn't have government medallions in place. There were no laws and rules that they had to abide by yet because they were a brand new company in technology. There was no designated parking for them on roadways. They didn't have the appropriate infrastructure. So airports had to invest all this money to provide the appropriate roadways, parking lots, to change all of these dwelling areas and do all the necessary things to support this new business model and this new demand, which is what's happening with AI, right? So that's why we have all this chaos going on. You have to see through the noise. And I'm telling you, you got to see through the noise and forget all of this bullcrap going on, because it's all going to work itself out, because it has no choice, because the demand is so high that all the tools and do what they need to do on their end so that consumers can enjoy the services they provide on their end. I traveled the country. I went to ground transportation meetings. I listened, because that's what I do. I listen and then find a need and design some sort of software program that would fulfill that need and fill that gap between the consumer and the airports or the industry I'm in. And that's what I do here in the film industry. Once I learned about how distributors actually do business the same way and the self-reporting business model, it's proprietary information. They don't allow the filmmakers and the film owners to access the real reporting and their real fees and the way that they charge filmmakers in over and over and over again for failing quality control at their discretion. Okay, so they can fail you as many times as they want when your film may have just passed, but they're making money off of that on the back end, and that's how a lot of business practices are done. So this is what I talk about when filmmakers think, oh, you got a bad deal with the distributor, that's all. No, honey. You all get a bad deal with the distributor, okay? Because you're not going in prepared with all the technical, the legal, your chain of title, your metadata in place. Your film is not set up correctly to pass the streaming platforms appropriately while giving you legal ownership of that movie. And oftentimes the writer or the director is not involved in any of the business dealings because they got an investor or they didn't form the LLC. They were missing documents in their chain of title, and they had nothing to do with it because they let the producers take over. So the producers dealt with it from there on out, and only the producers have access to all of the reporting. You guys don't, because now you are looked at as just an independent contractor who worked on the production, and then you moved on to the next film while the executive producer is dealing with the business end and trying to get paid a penny from the distributors. And you think the movie did okay, oftentimes, if it got a release. But oftentimes, when it gets a release, it didn't make anything ever because the distributor or the aggregator, whoever, is recouping the money that they said they continuously put out after you've already paid them so much money several times over just to fix the fixes on the quality control failures that they gave you. And you must go through a vendor of their choice, so they share all the profits, and that's none of your business what they're billing you and what they're taking from you. Okay. So when I saw this happen, and this reminded me of what I went through with the TNCs and the self-reporting, because this was happening on airport property. Airport, if that's like telling me, this is my house, this is my property, and you're going to come in and I just find somebody posted up in one of my bedrooms at my house. And I'm like, oh, who are you? What are you doing here? Are you safe to be here? I mean, you ask all these questions, and then you're like, okay, what are you giving me for rent? Oh, I'll give you what I want. I'll give you $50 a month. I mean, how is that going to go down for you? Right? So that's essentially the same thing that's going on. These people are taking advantage of the people who own the property. I own the movie. Don't take advantage of me. The airports, their property is owned by them, and you're making money off of using their space and their passengers, then you need to pay them what you agreed upon and not self-report and fudge numbers. Okay. And that's what we're talking about here. So, and that's what I do here in the film industry. Once I learned about how distributors actually do business the same way and the self-reporting business model. And, when people, that's why filmmakers, when you question that, you probably haven't had a deal with a distributor, because not to where you've paid for the money. If you funded the film and you get only paid back $800 and you put out 10 grand toward the film, I'm sorry, you did not do well. And a lot of filmmakers think it is because it's so bad. That's how bad it is. But really, it's our own fault too, because we don't know the business operations, and we don't know that we have to build it in order for it to see any revenue and build our IP, build it as a business, and not just focus on creative. So once you're in that position and you don't own the LLC of the movie, you did not fund the film, you don't have access to any of the business that goes on in the movie. It's none of your business at that point. And that's what I want to change for filmmakers, to make sure that you are a part of it, that it is your business, and that you do understand what's going on so that you can be fully prepared for the next film. Because even post houses aren't aware of what is required to pass quality control. Did you guys know that? You could have a quality control, or you could have, a spec sheet from distributors, and it could be, but it's never really specified what those specifications are. It'll be kind of bland, because we've had them too, and we still had to go through the process so many times because they make their money off charging you off what you don't know. Okay. And that's why I made the Berserker Film Business Mastery Production Kit. That's so that you have all of that information and what it takes. Because once you have any type of bad situation or bad deal with that distributor, because you have the full ownership of that movie, they can't mess with you. All right. So that's what makes all that difference in the world. And then you're also going to mitigate and eliminate all those fees as well, which could be anywhere from $30,000 to $150,000 is what they'll charge you with marketing and all the fixes they're going to make on your movie. So it's the same approach that I've taken with the TNCs. And I know I'm talking long about this, but it's because I want to give you a full understanding of where I'm coming from on this, and why our minds get so carried away when we need to see what's right in front of us and fix what's in front of us. All right, I'm going to leave you with a couple of more to think about. Telephones will destroy real human connection. No respectable person should have strangers' voices entering the home. Telephones will spread gossip, scandal, and moral decay. Phonographs, recorded sound. Recorded voices are eerie and unnatural. Machines are stealing the soul of music. Live performance will die. Photography. Cameras steal something essential from a person. Images replace reality. All right, I'm going to leave you with a couple of more to think about. Telephones will destroy real human connection. No respectable person should have strangers' voices entering the home. Telephones will spread gossip, scandal, and moral decay. Phonographs, recorded sound. Recorded voices are eerie and unnatural. Machines are stealing the soul of music. Live performance will die. Photography. Cameras steal something essential from a person. Images replace reality. People will become obsessed with vanity and appearances. Well, I think they were before that, if that's the case. Radio. People will sit passively and stop talking to each other. The home will be invaded by outside voices and propaganda. Families will become mentally controlled by broadcasters. Automobiles. The human body was not built to move that fast. High speed will damage the brain and nerves. Cars will destroy communities, horses, and decency. Oh, trains. Traveling too fast will cause madness or physical collapse. The body cannot withstand rapid motion. The landscape and soul of life will be destroyed from trains. Elevators. No sane person should trust a box hanging by cables. Women will faint from the terror. A mechanical lift is an invitation to sudden death. Typewriters. Mechanized writing will cheapen thought. Real intellect cannot come from keys and speed. Calculators. Computers. People will forget how to think. Machines will make the human mind lazy. We are handing judgment over to cold systems. No, I think they've helped make quite a bit of progress in every direction. Television, it will rot attention spans. It will destroy reading, conversation, and family life. Children will be raised by the screen. The internet, human relationships will become fake. Truth dissolving in abundance. Social media, public opinion will turn into mob madness. Identity will be engineered in public. So every era mistakes unfamiliar power for a curse. First they call it unnatural, then they call it dangerous, then they can't live without it. The pattern never changes, only the machine does. Like and subscribe here at Filmmaker Berserk.